ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादां सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुस्तुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Thank you all for coming. We'll continue our reading the introduction to Bhagavad Gita. In the last few classes, what we read is about on dharma, and we also saw the definition for Sanatana dharma. Like a dharma of a sugar is to sweet, dharma of a fire is to have light and heat. Similarly, dharma of a jiva is to serve. Yeah, and Sanatana dharma is to serve the Supreme in the form of either Vishnu, Narayana, Rama, or Krishna. Then Prabhupada also brings in the discussion that serving anyone doesn't mean it's a Sanatana dharma, and from there he leads to the discussion, because many people think that if I worship demigod or serve them, it is also a Sanatana dharma. Then the last class was fully focused on the worshipping of the demigods, right? And we saw here in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself calls the demigod worshippers as unintelligent men. You know why? Why did he calls demigod worshippers unintelligent? We saw 3 reasons, right? First of all, whatever what's wrong in you worship the demigod to receive some material benefit, right? Even if you receive the material benefit, it is not it is temporary. Exactly, the word is temporary and limited. And why it is limited?
That is not part of Sanatana Dharma. Everything that is materialistic, it is not permanent. What is permanent is the relation between you and Lord Vishnu is permanent.
Yes. Right. Yes. Right. Yeah, from the it is temporary because the demigod's position himself are temporary. They are like a post. And it is limited because whatever you have in your destiny, that is what you are going to get. You are not going to get more.
Not going to give anything more than what you have earned.
So whatever you get from demigods is through bribery, like a bribery, right? Like you are bribing demigod to get something.
Kind of. Yeah, that was an analogy Prabhupada gave. But actually it's like, they are like the bank tellers, right? You have something in your account, they are only giving you. You approach the teller, you fill out a withdrawal slip, right, and then they give you money from your own account. So that's a... Huh? By doing pious credits. We see so many ritualistic activities in the Vedas, right? So many sacrifices, so many vratas, fasting, so many pujas we do, all those things that are prescribed in the Vedas. When we do that, we get that pious credit. And the result of that is all these material benefits that is distributed through demigods. So it's not that they are manufacturing something and giving us. It's what we have earned, they are just handing it to us. But again, demigods have that little power to manipulate how much you get at what time. Like banks, the other day Prabhu was giving an example. So if you are allowed to only withdraw $1,000 a day, but you want something more. So you can, maybe. So see what they have earned, they will get somehow or other. Maybe not in a very nice way or without them realizing.
So they don't do any other how do they earn? What is it from that?
So basically they might not get what they deserve during that time frame. They might not get because they are not doing the right, they are not approaching. Like they have the money, but if they are not going to the bank to withdraw, they will not get it, right? So that's one way to understand. And then again, the karma is there. And other thing is if they are not following the Vedas, right? So they are doing things in an unapproved way. So they are actually accumulating more sins also.
You can earn money in many different ways, right? You can earn money, work very hard, or you can earn money illegally, or you can even start in a very gross way. Okay, I want to start a slaughterhouse because there's a lot of demand for the meat, right? But whether it's a good credit or pious or a bad, it is going to cause bondage in the material world because if you have more bad, you are going to suffer in this world. If you have more, you are going to get bondage because you have the propensity, oh, I have so much of money, I can enjoy here more actually. So either good or bad is not, it causes bondage in the material world.
Yeah, so basically what is yours. You will get it. But when you pray to demigods, you may get it quicker than people who do not. So later chapters Krishna explains that. Those who worship the demigods, they may get their desires very quickly satisfied.
You will always see I lived in Bombay for some time, so you'll see most of the businessmen, they will pray to Lord Ganesh and Lakshmi. They want to remove all obstacles.
And they want to get money.
They want to get money. You will see them. On Diwali they will do puja, on Ganesh puja they will do very big celebration actually. So in that, so we saw that whatever the material benefit we get, they are first temporary and limited, and also we also saw the whole cycle. Whatever we pray to demigod is ultimately bestowed or given from Krishna. And whatever the sacrifice or offering you give to the demigod, they give it back to Krishna himself actually. That's what we saw. See this. 9:20. We saw all the verses, right? We saw the references for all these things actually. So it's a cyclic. Whatever you get from demigod is coming from Krishna. Whatever you offer to demigod, it goes back to Krishna actually. Because demigods are like ministers in a government, right? They are temporary post. They cannot hold on like if you deposit money in the cashier or teller, he is not going to keep it. He is going to deposit back into the bank actually. Right. Yeah.
He's in the category of demigods. At least again, we saw in last class more details. There is one form of Shiva in the spiritual world. He is a Vishnu Tattva. His expansions, there are many of his expansions who come into this world for different purposes. So he is somewhere in between demigod and God. But he is still in the category, we consider him as the category of demigods.
But he is a person. He's not going to be replaced like other demigods are going to replace. And also he is representing one of the gunas. He is representing the tamo gun.
Mode of ignorance. So there are three gunas, sattva gun or goodness, raja gun or passion, or tamo guna is ignorance. So there are different demigods in charge of all this, basically controlling these three modes. So Lord Vishnu is the sattva guna, Lord Brahma is raja guna, and Lord Shiva is the controller of mode of passion, ignorance.
And you need all the three gunas. We saw that we need all the three gunas for the happening of this material world. Like the mode of passion you need to create. Like that's why even when we go to office, we are in the mode of passion. That's where we can work. We need to be in the mode of ignorance so that the destruction can happen. And that's where Lord Shiva is represented, and the mode of goodness is represented by Vishnu, which is maintenance. It's a huge task.
That's the toughest of all actually.
Yeah.
Creation is easy, destruction is easy, maintenance is very, very hard.
You can think in anything in your life actually. If you want to buy a car, it's so easy. But maintaining the car is so difficult, and selling the car is also not so difficult.
But the Lord Shiva's position is also unique because he is the greatest of all Vaishnavas. So actually approaching Lord Shiva may not be too bad if you do it in the right understanding. If you approach him as a Vaishnava, seeing him as a Vaishnava, then it's nothing is bad actually. Actually he heads one of the Sampradayas, right? We saw that. Rudra Sampradaya is coming from him. He is the predominating deity of Rudra Sampradaya. So, but if we approach him for getting something very quickly, so then he is as good as any other demigod. So that is one thing. So either we can see him as a bhakta, as a topmost bhakta. He is the topmost of all Vaishnavas. That's one way to approach Lord Shiva. Other way to approach Lord Shiva is to just treat him as any other devata and ask, like all these demons do, right? Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, all those people, they go to Lord Shiva for very quickly getting boons. So devatas are short-term goals only. Any devatas they give you so quickly, but that may not be very best, right? That we saw also.
Yeah, so there are two things, right? There are two things we didn't cover much in this detail in the last week. One is the prayas and shreyas. Okay, you can give an example like prayas is short term, it's derived from the word priya. Priya means what? Which is dear, what we like more. Shreyas is long term. The example which we can give is that you see a child always playing. We all have kids, or soon we'll have kids that we go to schools. What is the natural tendency? What is they like most? Is they like to play. Means they look in the short term, oh, I want to play. That is prayer, short term. But what is the long term? You tell to them actually, they study. Studying and you become an engineer or a doctor, it's a long term thing. So that's the analogy. If you want to pray to a demigod, you will get it quickly, whatever you want. Short term.
It will give immediate pleasure, basically.
Yeah.
But it is not good in the long term. May not be good. Just like, a child who doesn't want to go to school and only play. Right? But going to school, taking that extra, it's an austerity for them. But it's good for them in the long run. So similarly, demigod worship will give immediate results and we may be satisfied also. But devotion to the Supreme Lord is our ultimate.
This is a long-term goal.
Long-term.
And you have to build it like how a child studying and becoming a professional is a long-term. It's not going to happen over the day actually. It has to happen over the years. Similarly, achieving the Supreme is not going to happen. It can happen by causeless mercy from the Supreme, but usually it has to be. You have to work.
You have to actively cultivate and work. It's not that it's going to. It's a lot of effort from our side is also required.
So we also saw we are in the introduction page 18 or 19 where we are talking about that's what we are reviewing. We are recapping what we discussed last week. So in the same paragraph where Krishna says about worshipping demigod is not intelligent, where Prabhupada mentioning about Krishna is the highest pleasure, reservoir of the highest pleasure, and we can easily associate with Krishna by chanting, hearing his glories, and rendering some devotional service to him. Later on, we also saw how Krishna comes into this material world to just show the glimpse of what are the actual activities or the pastimes happening in the Goloka Vrindavan. It's just like a trailer for us to show all of us here, the jivas here suffering, saying that, hey, if you want to know the true happiness, these kind of pastimes, it happens always there in the spiritual planet. So, and also the next verse, that's what we continue. We left is where Krishna is describing the how the spiritual world, giving a glimpse of spiritual world. Before this, we saw Prabhupada explaining or giving the examples of various pastimes. Not example, Prabhupada is showing that how Krishna comes here and does various pastimes, which is actually happening in the spiritual world.
Replicas.
Replicas.
Replicas of those
Yeah.
pastimes found in his abode.
And then the next paragraph, Prabhupada is quoting a verse from Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is giving the glimpse of a spiritual world, where he is saying that my world is not illuminated by sun or moon. And the one who comes to my abode never returns back, actually. So that's where we ended, and we are going to continue the discussion. So what we saw in the flow is that Prabhupada defined dharma, Sanatana dharma, then worship of the demigods. Now we are getting into the introduction or getting the more overview on the spiritual world. So today's discussion, we are going to continue the discussion on the spiritual world, the difference between spiritual world and material world, and we will get some more details on the material world, how the material world is made up. Right? So we'll continue reading. I don't know, depending on, though the book looks same, the page may be different. Maybe page 19, in the middle section, starts with in the effulgent rays. You can start.
In the effulgent rays of the spiritual sky, there are innumerable planets floating. The Brahma Jyoti emanates from the supreme abode Krishna Loka, and the Anandamaya, Chinmaya planets, which are not material, float in those rays. So this is much like our material world. So in our material world also, there are so many planets. Well, we call stars, we call planets, all sorts of things. Everything is floating in the sunlight, basically. The same way in the spiritual world, everything is floating in Brahma Jyoti, which are the rays coming from Krishna's body. And these planets are not material, which means they will not be subject to creation and destruction. They are always existing and full of ananda, anandamaya. Right? The Lord says, "Na tad bhashyate suryo na shashanko na pavakaha yad katva na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama." So this is the verse that we saw before also, which translates as, that supreme abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by the fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. So one who can approach that spiritual sky is not required to descend again to this material sky.
Yeah, let's finish the paragraph.
In the material sky, even if we approach the highest planet Brahmaloka, what to speak of the moon? We will find the same conditions of life, namely birth, death, disease and old age. No planet in this material universe is free from these four principles of material existence.
So till now, Prabhupada was talking about the spiritual world. Now in this paragraph, he started contrasting with the material world. Like you can see here, like as she explained, in the material world, we see that the sun is the only source of energy here, and you see all the planets floating around the sun or revolving around the sun. Actually, similarly, in the spiritual world, what you see here, there is a Goloka, there is a principle or the supreme abode, Goloka Vrindavan. From there, emanates the Brahma Jyoti, and within that Brahma Jyoti, you see all these spiritual planets. And you saw earlier also, there various forms or avatars of Krishna is there, right? Rama, Narayana, all forms of Trivikrama. You can see they all have one principal planets where they are residing, and all these planets are floating in the Brahma Jyoti. You will also see here on the corner is the material world actually. It is defined it is mentioned in Vedas that the spiritual is 3/4 of the whole creation, and the material world is just 1/4. Yeah. So look how unfortunate we are. We are just 1/4 of the, and that too we have so many innumerable planets coming from, universes coming from Mahavishnu's core. Okay. That is just 1/4 of the whole. You can both, when you combine both material and spiritual, we are just 1/4. And also here, Prabhupada is, what are the four miseries Prabhupada is explaining in the material world? That Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. These are the four miseries which don't exist in the spiritual world actually.
On top of that four, we have threefold miseries also. Miseries caused by body and mind, miseries caused by other living entities, miseries caused by higher powers like the demigods. They're like the natural calamities and all those things. So we have 7 in all actually, if you see. Right?
So you are seeing here, then Prabhupada is saying that since we have miseries in the material world, we should always try to aim to go to the spiritual world actually, so that we don't have to suffer these miseries actually.
The good part is once we go there, we don't have to come back, right? It's like when we go for a vacation, we can enjoy only as long as we have money to support us, right? In the same way, once that is done, we have to come back and start over all over again to go on for our next vacation. But well, for going to spiritual world, after going to spiritual world, we don't have to worry about coming back. So it's like a one-way ticket, basically. Bhakti is a one-way ticket. We don't have to come back again to this place.
So coming back meaning that after death, we'll have to come back if we are not in the bhakti.
Yes.
We'll see.
We'll see. Even in bhakti, we have to. There are stages, you know. So if we are completely purified, if we are completely eligible to enter the spiritual world, yes, no question of coming back at all.
It's not only bhakti. Anyone we'll see. We saw that there are 3 kind of transcendentalists, right? We saw the what is the definition of transcendentalist?
What is transcend? Go above what? 3 modes of
3 modes. So there are 3 kinds of transcendentalists. Basically, who don't have to come back actually. They just go out of the.
Basically, they are eligible to go to the spiritual world.
We'll see that that's coming in the same flow we are going to discuss.
Spiritual world and Swarga.
Swarga is inside the
Swarga is all in the material world. You can see here all
We are
these.
going to read that actually.
All these are Swarga only. So if you go here, you have to come back.
So you are still here only.
Then
So actually Prabhupada, sorry to cut the discussion, but Prabhupada often called this material world as a prison house, where we are sent for correction. Okay. So in prison house, there are different grades of cells, right? And the criminals are given different kinds of cells based on the severity of the crime they have committed. So some politician and all rich businessmen, they may get a A-class prison where they have lots of facilities. An ordinary, thief or somebody would get a B-class prison. And somebody, murderer or a very dangerous person will get a C-class dungeon where there's no light, no facilities. So all these different planets that we have, right, wherever we are placed. So they are like different grades of cells within this prison-like material world. So the heavenly planets and all are like A-class cells. Even though it is A-class, it is still a prison. So for people who are in B or C-class prisons, their aspiration to go to A-class cell is not very intelligent because they are still inside the prison. The ultimate self-interest is to get out of prison, right? So that's where the jivas should aspire to go to spiritual world. As long as anywhere they are in this material world, they are still in prison, whether A-class, B-class or C-class cell. So that is a very clear distinction that actually we have. We are very fortunate. Our Vedic knowledge is very clearly, it is defining what is material world, what is inside material world, and what is outside material world. In no other scriptures it's as clear as given, so clearly given actually. Yeah, so returning back to the discussion, so 3 kinds of transcendentalists are eligible to go.
So we saw that there are 3 kinds of transcendentalists. One is the Jnani, other is the Yogi, other is the Bhakta. And we'll see now there are 2 different destinations. For these 3, there are 2 different destinations. Yeah. So I have to use something. So whoever wants to leave this material world, see, this is Devi Dham. which is, you see all the bubbles, and below this, where Mahavishnu is, Karnadaksha Vishnu is lying down. So this is all material world actually. The transcendentalist is the one who wants to leave the material or transcend this mode. They have got no attachment to this material world actually. They want to be liberated. Okay?
So when our Atma, soul is centered, meaning our soul has to be moved from this material world to Bhakti world.
Spiritual planet. Spiritual planet, yeah.
Spiritual planet.
Right. So, there are three features of the God which we saw. Satchitananda, based on, and you can realize the God on those aspects. Okay. So, as a Jnani, the maximum he can go is still Brahmajyoti, which is just the, which is the spiritual planet, but just the starting of spiritual world.
No planet.
Yeah, spiritual world, just the starting of it. Okay. Now the other is
Such people don't get shelter in any planets actually, because they have not worshipped the, like they don't have that conception of God at all. They just think that Brahmajyoti is the ultimate goal of life. Above that, they don't have any knowledge. Yes.
yes, there is the risk.
There is. Basically, he knows that this material world is
a place of, yeah.
Yeah, they can read and see, people can read all the Vedas, but their conclusions may be different. Their realizations will be different.
But in lay matter, it's somebody
Yes.
who knows that this is a
Material and spiritual, who knows the difference. Basically, who knows, yes. And who knows that he is spiritual. Jnani knows that he is the soul and not this body. And he knows that all this temporary nature of material world, he knows.
Because they know that this place is a world of suffering. They just want, and they realize that they are not this body, they are the soul. But only thing is that they don't establish the connection with the God. So that's where they hang around in the Brahmajyoti. Now the second kind of realization is realizing the Paramatma within yourself. And based on how you realize, you can either go to Brahmajyoti or you can go to any of the spiritual planet.
So Paramatma is the localized form of Krishna in everyone's heart. He is there in everyone's heart. So in chapter 15 he declares, I am seated in everyone's heart as the Paramatma. So yeah, so there are those meditators, you know, we see, right, who go to Himalayas and meditate. Sitting in trance and meditating. So they are able to see the form of Lord in their heart. So those are yogis, and they can realize the Paramatma secret basically. So they know they are soul, and then there is another entity, Paramatma, who is supreme soul. So that realization they have.
There is a picture of the transcendentalist, you can see the yogi. Page, I don't know, it's plate 10 actually. So, and then the third category is the Bhakta, which is basically the best.
Plate 8 mein.
Plate 10,
Plate 8 mein. So yeah.
Not in the sense that at least not praising like something like God.
Yeah.
Right? They should have that.
Yes. Yes.
But when you become Bhakta, the Jnana
Jnana comes out.
as a
Jnana
byproduct, it is a byproduct of Bhakta actually. Bhakti, the Jnana will come automatically actually.
Jnana
No,
and
renounced.
Jnana, both. So these Jnanis and Yogis, they artificially try to give up, like they have to try explicitly to get both Jnana and Tyaga. But one who is practicing Bhakti already, they are already getting it as a byproduct because their attachment is with Krishna, right? So everything else takes a backseat. And whatever knowledge is, in 15:15 we've seen that verse, he says, I give the knowledge. So when you surrender to Krishna, whatever Jnana you need, he will give. Yes, he will reveal.
The third category, the Bhakta, they are eligible to enter the Vaikuntha planets. The Vaikuntha planets is all starting from this, the middle one, from Haridhama till Goloka Vrindavan. That is based on your rasa. We saw 5 kinds of rasa, right? Based on the rasa, you will be placed in any of those planets actually.
But anything above Brahma Jyoti is spiritual, right?
spiritual.
I think actually everywhere is Brahmajyoti is everywhere.
It's pervading. Yes.
Yeah, it's all it's like how sunlight is in this.
Brahmajyoti is pervading everywhere actually.
The only thing is people who attend Brahmajyoti but not planets, they are people like who are floating in sunlight, who are flying in sunlight, but they have not landed on any planet. They have nothing to do.
That is more worse than living on Earth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There is a
there's a
Kaivalyam Naraka. For them, they say that.
Actually, bhaktas say Kaivalya Narakaya Kalpate means it's worse than being in hell. Like they will prefer being in hell than being in Brahmajyoti because there's nothing to do. So we have processes given in the Vedas, right? So if they follow, they follow. They can take. They can take. So it's said that when people like Narad Muni, they travel here and there, they can take his association and get higher knowledge. If they do that, then they are eligible to enter. Actually, the four Kumaras were like they were Brahmavadis. Or, they were attracted to Brahmajyoti. But then when they smelled the fragrance of Tulsi from Lord's lotus feet, then they were attracted and then they went to Vaikuntha. Right? And then they became devotees of the Lord. So those things, they can happen for people who are in Brahmajyoti also.
So here we'll see a verse soon, verse which is from chapter 8, 16th verse, where Krishna is saying that right from, which is the topmost planet, the Brahmaloka or Satyaloka, till the lowest planet, these four miseries, birth, death, old age are going to be there, exist, yes. It is said, okay, the best place to live is from earth. The analogy which we heard from one of the Swamis in ISKCON is that when it's a skyscraper building, it's a high building. If you have to exit the building, where you have to come? L0, ground floor. If you are in the below the
In the
basements or the sub, you have to come. So middle, the earth is the best plane to exit,
this material world.
and especially in Kali Yuga, the best way to get that is chanting the holy name of the Lord. Actually, in Yuga Dharma for this Kali Yuga used to just chant the holy name. In the other Yugas, it was so laborious or very awesome, very effort-intensive kind of a thing that you need to perform, like performing Ashtami Yagya or meditating for hundreds and thousands of years. Actually.
Not just this earth planet, the human body is the best deal we can have. If we get the body of a demigod, there is so much enjoyment, there is so much power, it's very difficult to take to bhakti. If we are in lower planets, again, they are so covered, there is lot of enjoyment. There is absolutely no knowledge of it. Yes, but it's all dark. It's like enjoyment like how the demons enjoy, right? It's all in the mode of ignorance. Wine, women, gambling, that kind of enjoyment.
Analogy here in the material world is going to a dark pub during the night. They enjoy, right? They close. If you make a pub very luminous, nobody will go actually. In fact, they say for casinos, they purposely make the light dim so that you come into that mode of ignorance, so that you purposely gamble more beyond what you can really think or your capacity is actually. They try to make yourself push more towards mode of ignorance. And most of the casino starts when? During the night time. When it is mode of ignorance is at the peak actually. Nobody will see in the morning hours playing and gambling because it's a mode of goodness actually.
Yeah. So human body is actually the best suitable thing to actually get out of the cycle of birth and death. Yeah. So first of all, Earth is the most suitable planet. This is called Karma Bhumi. This is the only planet where we can actually manipulate our karmas. We can choose between good and bad. Rest all places we are mostly expensing our karma, either good or bad. This is the the only place where we can make a conscious choice in human life on earth. It's the only chance we have to make a conscious choice to whether to stay here or to get out.
Basically, you can nullify whether good and bad karma both here actually.
And that too, Kali Yuga. We are in Kali Yuga, right? Though it is the most degraded of all ages, the most simplest process has been given to us, actually. It's like, I heard in one of the lectures, like if you have 4 children, right? 4 children.
4 children.
One is grown up in college, no, not in college, married with his own family, settled, earning on his own. You don't care too much about him. Second is in college, you are still supporting him a little bit. So, and the third is still in school. And the fourth one is kind of a baby, completely dependent. He doesn't have any qualifications. Whom will you be more merciful to, most merciful to? The youngest one, right? That's the position of us in Kali Yuga. We are so disqualified, unqualified. We have no qualification actually. And our life is short. We don't have much time also. So Lord is actually most merciful to us. In Satyuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, people used to live for thousands of years. It starts with what? 10,000 years, 100,000
years.
10,000,
Something.
1,000 and 100. Our lifespan is decreasing, our
Memories.
strength, memory, everything is decreasing. So Lord has given us the most easiest process because like what has been prescribed for other ages we cannot, it's impossible to do here in this age. So the most easiest thing has been given for us in Kali Yuga actually.
And our memory has deteriorated so much that there was no written form of Vedas earlier. Everybody used to have the sharp memory actually. That's why Vyasadeva 5,000 years ago he wrote everything so that we foolish people can at least somebody who is realizing is going to get and read at some point of time actually. There was no written versions of the Vedic scriptures.
So in fact, this whole Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. So in that he says, Kalau dosha nidhe rajan. This Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. But asti eka mahadguna. There is one very good thing about it. What is that? Kirtanadeva Krishnasya mukta sangha param rajan. Only by glorifying Krishna you can attain that ultimate perfection of life. So actually we are in a very good position. We have the best position actually. Human life, take birth on this earth in Kali Yuga. Especially this Kali Yuga is very, very special because just the previous Dwapar Yuga, Krishna came in his original form. We discussed in some, Prabhu was telling in some classes, right? He came as he exists in Goloka. He came in his original form. Krishna comes once in a day of Brahma, right? So our Kali Yuga cycle is very special actually.
And we consider ourselves to be very fortunate that we are just, since Krishna came, if we render service, we have an opportunity to go back directly to the Goloka Vrindavan. There are also Krishna in various avatara forms exist in other planets also, but not in the original form. When he came 5,000 years ago, he came directly from the Goloka Vrindavan. You want to see the verse? So we'll see where Krishna is mentioned. Huh? So the 8:16 verse, which is in 8th chapter 16th verse, where Krishna is saying that from the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are the places of miseries wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. This is what Prabhupada is saying now as he is going to explain about material world. He is saying that it's better to
aspire for Krishna's abode.
Okay. So we'll continue reading further. The next chapter, the next paragraph is all about the material world, and also we will see how to do an interplanetary travel.
The living entities are traveling from one planet to another, but it is not that we can go to any planet we like merely by a mechanical arrangement. If we desire to go to other planets, there is a process for going there. This is also mentioned. Yanti Deva Vrata Devan Pitrim Yanti Pitravrata. No mechanical arrangement is necessary if we want interplanetary travel.
So here now Prabhupada, as we said, now he is switching from the spiritual description of the spiritual world to the material world, and now he's in this paragraph he is defining about the interplanetary travel. So this is the verse where Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, where we are preparing our destiny based on how we are carrying ourselves in this life actually. Here in this verse, where it says that if you worship a particular devata, okay, we saw in the material world there are various numerous planets for each. Chandra has his own planet, Surya has his own planet. So based on who you worship, your destiny will be defined within this material world actually. But if you worship devatas, you will go to the planet of devatas. If you worship your forefathers, you'll go to their planet wherever they are. Yeah. If you worship ghost and spirit, you will go to their planets. We saw here, right? There even is planet for the ghost and spirit. But if you worship Krishna, you can go to Goloka itself actually. So this is the, and here Prabhupada is mentioning that you don't need any mechanical arrangement, where now it's a age of where we are talking about space travel or Mars tourism, or also 1960s and 70s when we had landing on the moon. There was certain controversies whether they still landed on the moon or not actually. So because according to here, what we are going to see now soon is that moon or Chandra Loka is a higher planetary system. It's in the Swarga Loka. And it's highly impossible that we could have gone to moon. Yeah.
The Gita instructs Yanti Deva Vrata Devan. The sun, the moon, the sun, and higher planets are called Swargaloka. There are three different statuses of planets: higher, middle, and lower planetary systems. The Earth belongs to the middle planetary system.
So we saw this also, but again here, so this is the more description of the material world, where Earth is in the middle planetary system. Okay, we have 6 upper higher planetary system, and we have 7 lower planetary system actually. Whatever you saw, this is just a representation of that actually. Yeah, ghost is above us.
Because they are more subtler. So as we go from bottom to top, the gross elements of the body are gradually decreasing. So if we see in Brahma is completely made of intelligence only.
His body is
Doesn't
made.
have a gross body made of earth like us. So ghosts are subtle, right? They don't have physical body as we know. So they are above us.
Also, they are very powerful.
They are very powerful, yeah.
Mhm.
But we can take in this bodily form. They are much more than we. Like one thing is the age of ghost tourism.
Yeah.
We cannot.
Yeah.
But these are more ghosts. They are ghost categories. These are somebody who is eliminated, who has not attained so much power. Or let's say somebody who is performing, who is
Committed
frustrated of his life and
Commit
performs
suicide.
suicide.
Mhm.
And they get their first body.
Because their next body is not, they are not prepared for their next body.
Time has not happened.
To switch over to another body.
So they have to stay within that phase of time in the ghost.
It's like you vacate your apartment without finding another apartment, right? You're on the streets. It's the same position. It's just the soul and the subtle body. So they have not created their next material body is not yet ready.
Generally, performance of suicide is because when you are frustrated. It's mainly it's a frustration that you are able to do what you want to do. Right? So you think that living generally nobody wants to die. That's one thing.
Yeah.
is sometimes premature. In that case, also you may get a ghostly one.
But aren't accidents and all governed by
There are
Aditya, right?
the
Like,
same cause like this guy, he took a truck and then killed everybody and then killed himself. That's kind of accident. He ran over everybody.
Hmm.
That could be their part is maybe because of the karma. I mean, this is just a speculation. I don't know much. It's just a speculation. But at the same time, we understand that there are certain
We
things.
also speculate like, okay, that the person commits suicide, maybe that was his actual form of death.
Yeah, could be. There could be. Yeah.
But there will be some cases where it is.
It's premature. Yes.
but for some that may be the way they.
Supposed to. Yes, that is possible. That's why Krishna is in Bhagavad Gita itself. Krishna is saying understanding karma is very, very difficult. But only thing there are certain principles we need to understand.
Mahaloka is sages, right? Prabhu?
Yes,
The
all
sages
of them are sages of various categories. Like
Ever so
higher and higher you go, the more advanced the sages are.
Sages.
The sages. They perform sacrifices, and it said that Lord Vishnu then personally comes and accepts
The oblations.
the oblations that they offer.
During the
They're very
sacrifice.
advanced.
Like here we put in the fire, right? When we say it's you are putting
Swaha.
this one.
Wow.
So that Lord Vishnu will directly come out of the fire and take your offering. So these are lower planetary system, which is more grosser and grosser and grosser, which is more at a bodily.
They don't see the sun actually, they are all very dark.
But I thought, like, these lokas are like, you're getting punished by this.
No, that is Pitraloka and hellish planets that are outside of this 14 planetary systems.
So it's not because it's Patala, that is different. So that is still.
Patala is all snakes, Mahatala is all snakes, Rasatala is Daityas. Daityas. Talatala is, I don't know. There are, which Prabhu, Vitala, there is Shiva and Bhavani. One of the planets have actually. One of the planets have. In Sutala Loka, Bali. These are not hell. Hellish are down. Pitraloka and hellish planet.
This is subterranean and heavenly.
Heavenly planets. Means there are the heavenly planets below the earth, which are dark, which don't see the sun. So basically the difference between Svargaloka and lower planetary systems is that enjoyment here is also there is also enjoyment is there, but they are doing it in a
Subtle.
way that is favorable, like they know the spiritual aspects of it, they know their position as the servants of Lord, whatever they are doing as a servant of Lord. But these people, they enjoy without any fear of God, without any knowledge of spirituality or like breaking all principles, unlimited enjoyment, this kind. So they are, they are becoming more, they are completely buried in ignorance. So at least in the higher planets there is knowledge, but still,
Chances are if someone falls down from earth to water, there is no way they will be able to come out again. Because of ignorance, right?
yeah, I mean,
What they're doing.
maybe once their karma is expensed,
Come back. There is nothing like eternity. So you spend some time there, then you come up. It's like a
natural evolution,
Yeah.
spiritual
Go up.
evolution.
you want that time. Like for example, the animal kingdom, like putting in a cow, dog, this cat, lion, this the life they have been given that amount of time period. So then they go through that phase, then they again come back to human form. Not from a spirit of it, maybe a lion
From cow.
or a cow, an elephant. Okay, from that position, they again come to human form. Then again human form they incur karma. In the animal form, there is no concept of karma. The lion killing a buffalo doesn't incur karma.
Is it food?
Huh?
It is his food.
It's food, yes. But the same thing is applicable to the demigods. Most of them is not in the bound of karma. Some of the activities are.
Brahma first creates the universe, this whole system is created and that continues. All those lokas, it is
is all around the, you saw here, right? All around the navel of
Stem of the
lotus. On the top of it is Brahma Loka.
higher planet will not have sun.
No, they will have.
Will have-
They will have. The lower only don't have.
Sun is moving around like this. So this, whenever the light of the sun goes into that.
So where we are is called a Bhumandala. It is a disk kind of thing. So on the edge of the disk, sun is there. So all these planets are below the disk, so they don't get sunlight. But above planets, they all get actually.
That diagram is there, no? That has got a disk, right? I don't know how you can see here actually. There is a disk here, and you can see that that is sealing the all
Our
sunlight.
Earth is somewhere on that disk actually, Earth planet.
Yeah.
Bhagavad Gita informs us how to travel to the higher planetary systems, Devaloka, with a very simple formula, Yanti Deva Vrata Deva. One need only worship the particular demigod of that particular planet, and in that way go to the moon, the sun, or any of the higher planetary systems.
So here, Prabhupada is mentioning that if you have to go to any of the higher planetary system, you worship the devatas in that particular planetary system, and you will reach your destination. Like if you want to go to moon, you worship Chandra. If you want to go to the planet, sun planet, worship Surya. And you don't need any mechanical arrangement to go there actually. So in this connection, there is a
And another point is you cannot go in the same body also. Like travel means you have to leave your body and in your next birth you will take in that planet. Because every planet has its suitable bodies, right? Like how here also we see, if you want to live in air, you need to have a bird's body, right? If you live in water, if you want to live in water, you must have a fish kind of body. Similarly, what the bodies we have is suitable for living on Earth, not on any other planet. So if we desire to go there, we have to change it. We need a change of body.
Yeah, at the same time, when we go there, if we don't see it, doesn't mean that there is no life.
Yeah.
Because with our eyes, we cannot,
Yeah.
might not be seen.
Yeah. Yeah, Prabhupada always says, like, when they said that there is no life on the moon, he said, even if they go, what, like, imagine an alien coming to Earth, right? What if he lands in the Sahara Desert and says that whole Earth is a desert? Right? It's just like that. Like, first of all, Prabhupada said, really, nobody could ever land on the moon. Humans have never set foot on the moon. But even if they did, that conclusion is wrong actually, that there are no living entities, there is no life on the moon. That's completely wrong. Because in the Vedas it is given. Right?
So according to what Prabhupada described is that moon planet or Chandraloka is a heavenly planet. So there is one, you all might have heard about the pastime of the King Trishanku. King Trishanku basically wanted to go to the heavenly planet, the Indraloka. And he was guided, his guru was Vashishta Muni. And he said, I want to go travel in this same mortal body to Indraloka. And as she said, if you have to go to the destination of the next planet, you need to have a suitable body. You need to give up this body, and also you need to have a lot of qualification and pious credit to go to the higher planetary system, because it's like promoting somebody in an organization without any qualification actually. So
Even on this planet only, to go from one country to another, we need so many things, right? We need to get a visa, and we need to make a lot of preparation, right? So how can we just, travel just like that with mechanical arrangement to some other planet? Even on this planet, we need to do so many things, right? We cannot just drive into any country, right, on our own. So there are laws, so many laws governing just on this planet. So why not on other planets?
So King Trishanku went and approached his guru Vashishta Muni, said, I want to travel in the same boat. Vashishta Muni said, it's never possible, because he knows the Vedas, you cannot do that. So He said he refused to do anything. Then he goes to Muni's sons. They chastise him. When our father and your guru has already told you that you cannot go in the same body, why you are insisting on that? And they in fact curse him to become a Chandala, a outcast kind of a man. Then he still has that thought, so strong thought that okay, I need to go to Indraloka or to a heavenly planet in the same body. So then there is some kind of rivalry between Vishwamitra Muni and Vasishtha, which is most originating from Vishwamitra Muni. Vasishtha Muni is totally, he's not get into that kind of act. So seeing this as an opportunity, he promises Trishanku that I am going to elevate you to the higher planet system, and he starts doing sacrifices and performances. And with that, he just starts elevate Trishanku to the higher planetary system. And Lord Indra says, hey, who is coming into my planetary system in the same material body actually? Like, not a suitable body actually. And it's like, as she said, there is no visa qualification for him to enter into the Indraloka. Then he refuses to let him in and ask him to go down and pushes him down actually. And when he comes down again in the Vishwamitra Muni pushes him up actually. So this is this pastime shows that you have to leave your body, you have to die, and you need to have a pious study to go to your higher planetary system actually. It's not going to happen within the same. But in the same verse where Krishna says that, but if you, the same principle applies to, if you want to go to Krishna's planet, always think about him, worship him, he will reach his destination actually. Ian Prabhupada is again continuing the same discussion in the next topic also, in the next paragraph.
Yet, Bhagavad Gita does not advise us to go to any of the planets in this material world. Because even if we go to Brahmaloka, the highest planet, through some sort of mechanical contrivance, by maybe traveling for 40,000 years, and who would live that long? We will still find the material inconveniences of birth, disease, and old age.
So again, there is another verse where in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying that if you worship me, and you are going to come back to me, and you are never going to return to this material world, fall back actually. So this is also another verse we saw, right? Abrahma Bhuvana Loka, which says that in this material world, birth, death, old age is the common miseries, and if you have to exit, then come to the spiritual world.
But one who wants to approach the supreme planet, Krishna Loka, or any other planet within the spiritual sky, will not meet these material inconveniences. Amongst all of the planets in the spiritual sky, there is one supreme planet called Goloka Vrindavan, the original planet in the abode of the original personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. All of this information is given in Bhagavad Gita, and we are given through its instruction information on how to leave the material world and begin a truly blissful life in the spiritual sky.
So as we saw in the earlier section, the material world, spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan is the supreme planet in the spiritual world, and here Prabhupada is discouraging that. Don't even think of any interplanetary travel within the material world. Aim for the best, the supreme planet, which is the Goloka Vrindavan. And here Prabhupada also in the last line is saying that how to leave this material world. This topic is soon we are going to cover this in 2 pages. So we'll hold that topic as of now, and we'll continue reading further. Which is now Prabhupada in the next paragraph. Prabhupada is going to show how a material world, a picture of the material world, which is basically a reflection from the spiritual world. We'll read this paragraph and we'll get this detailed information on this.
In the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the real picture of the material world is given. It is said here, Urdhva Moolam Adhar Shakham Ashwatham Prahuravyayam Chandamsi yasya parnani yastam vedasa vedavet. Here the material world is described as a tree whose roots are upwards and branches are below. We have experience of a tree whose roots are upward. If one stands on the bank of a river or any reservoir of water, he can see that the trees reflected in the water are upside down. The branches go downward and the roots upward.
So here, in this verse, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself says that the material world is the reflection of it's like a perverted reflection of the spiritual world, which is like a tree, and you can see the reflection in an inverted reflection, like how if you stand in front of a lake or a water body and there is a tree, you can also see an image of the tree in the water, which is totally upside down. So what Prabhupada here is going to say is that this spiritual world, though it is real, temporary, and full of miseries, but is basically a reflection of the spiritual world actually. It is like an upside banyan tree, where roots are up and the branches and leaves are down.
So the banyan tree has many roots which is coming down, right? So the entire chapter, like 15th chapter, is describing the material world in that way. And the root, which is the part which you see in the water, the root is upward, right? The top part is the root. So that's where is Lord Brahma, and then going down is all the other material creation. So if somebody is in the water, in the top of the water, you will be able to see the original tree is there as well as the reflection is there. Right? So somebody is sitting in the boat, let's say from far distance, we see the original tree as well as seeing the reflection. So the original tree is a spiritual world, and the reflected tree is the material creation. So exactly like this. So what are the part of the trees? That description is given. But let's say you see a chair. So the concept of chair can only come in my mind if there is an original chair. That's the whole thing. So the concept of material world, which is the creation, which is temporary in nature, is there because there is an eternal spiritual creation, which is that the tree which was about. It is never destroyed. But this tree, if you see, yeah, same thing is in the mirror. So in mirror you see water, but there is no water in mirror, right? But actually there is a presence of water somewhere. That's why we have an idea of water.
Prabhupada also says, right, the reflection may be there sometimes or may not be
May
there,
be there.
but the tree will always be there. Similarly, the spiritual world is always there. Material world, the reflection becomes manifest and unmanifest again and again.
This is also mean whatever we experience is actually different in like happiness.
That
Yeah.
that's what Prabhupada is going to conclude. Whatever the happiness we are seeing in this material world is basically actually a reflection, perverted reflection of what is there in the spiritual world actually. And the example what Prabhu mentioned here, the mirage, which Prabhupada is going to talk about, and as well as the reflection. Because in desert, you see water, but there is no water in the desert at all actually. But you have seen water somewhere else. That's why you're able to relate to it as a water. So from the shadow, though shadow may not have any reality or substance, but from the shadow you know somewhere there is the real thing is there actually. If you see a mirage, how you are quickly able to relate. If you have not seen water, then how you will see water kind of, you cannot even relate that to water actually. So similarly,
Another example can be given, like, there is a rope, right? And in the darkness, there is you see a rope. And somebody who doesn't have conception of snake may not be able to relate that snake with that rope.
yeah.
So a lot of times when we go in the room and we see actually a rope is there. But we think, oh, it's a snake. But actually there is no snake, it's a rope. But because we have conception of snake, we connect that conception with fear. So being a soul, everything is actually stored in our mind. When we die, only your body dies actually. The soul travels in the next body with other elements like the soul goes with mind, intelligence, and
False ego.
and mind is the storehouse of all the past experience. So we have experience of water, we have experience of snake. So then we connect that with snake. Or when we are driving, sometimes we see water on the road. Because we see that. Actually, there is water. On the road, there is no water. So similarly, there is happiness. There's all these things eternally existing in the spiritual. We have that experience in our mind. That's what we are seeing here.
You know, soul is, the real nature of soul is this, right? Anandamaya.
Anand. Yes.
Yes, sir. So it is there. It's covered, but our soul is itself full of knowledge, eternity, and bliss.
In the heavenly part, like there is a Kapodaksha, that's a copy of tree here. Surabhi is out in sort of, here we have also, but the powers and the, when you go to Kapodaksha and ask anything, it can give any fruit. One tree can give many fruits. But when you come to that tree can give only one type of fruit.
Yes.
So even it is like,
Yeah, there is some experience of original thing.
but the essence is like whatever we are experiencing within, whatever happiness we are thinking it is happiness is not really happiness.
Exactly.
It's a reflection.
It's a reflection.
Yeah, but real
Not a real
happiness
reflection
is-
too. Yeah, that's what we're going to read. Similarly, this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. The material world is but a shadow of reality. In the shadow, there is no reality or substantiality. But from the shadow, we can understand that there are substance and reality.
We can underline that statement which says that in a shadow there is no reality or sustainability, but from the shadow we can understand there is a substance and reality. Like even if you walk in a sun, you will see a shadow. Without a person, you cannot get a shadow, right?
In the desert, there is no water, but the mirage suggests that there is such thing as water. In the material world, there is no water, there is no happiness, but the real water of actual happiness is there in the spiritual world.
Yeah, I think we discussed already.
The Lord suggests that we attain the spiritual world in the following manner. Nirmana moha
Chitasanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivarta kama dvandair vimukta sukha dukkha samjay gachanti muda padamavyayam tat.
That Padam Avyayam or eternal kingdom can be reached by one who is Nirmana Moha. What does this mean? We are after designations. Someone wants to become Sir, someone wants to become Lord, someone wants to become the president or a rich man or a king or something else. As long as we are attached to these designations, we are attached to the body because designations belong to the body. But we are not these bodies, and realizing this is the first stage in spiritual realization. So here,
So in this paragraph, what Prabhupada is saying about how to attain the spiritual world. He is saying that he gave the description of the material world, spiritual world. Now he is going to give a how to attain, or basically what do you need qualification to attain that spiritual world actually from the here to leave this material world. So there are nirmana is basically a prestige or a false prestige or a pride. You need to give that up because all those prestige or pride comes from a bodily concept, right? Right? I am a man or a woman or an American or an Indian or I'm a rich, poor, white, black. It's all bodily concept. But we consider all not at a body level, but we all are At a spiritual level, we are souls, and we all are of same size actually. We all are of the size of
What is our size?
soul size. Yeah, yeah, that's all we are.
1,000th part of a tip of a hair. That's the size of soul.
Is it written in?
It is given. What is the reference provided? Where is it? Which Puran? Mahabharata? Keshagrasya
Things may
Shatabhagasya?
happen.
Should be there.
There are a couple of places.
Yeah,
No, it is there in the 17th.
217.
Yeah, 217.
Yeah, and Shvetashvatara Upanishad is also there.
All these references are there in many different scriptures you find. Little bit different word will be there. Sometimes the same word is repeated in different ways, depending on which rishi is there. So there is something called a Shruti, and I repeat that again. There is Smriti. Shruti is directly spoken by God. Right? Smriti is somebody hears it and realizes and writes it. So he writes it. So there will be some difference in words here and there, but the meaning is same. Principle, underlying principle is same. So most probably it's you will find the same words, which is there in Sridhar Upanishad, but then you also find it in other scriptures.
Shatabhagasya Shatamsha Sadrishatmaka.
So it's little, these are different words.
So here it says first divide the Keshagra into 100 Shatabhaga, and each of those part again divide into 100, and that will be the size of Jiva Sukshma Swarupoya.
That is controlling all the bodies.
Exactly,
Yeah.
so powerful actually. Soul is so powerful.
And it is spiritual in nature. So you cannot say, okay, you are cover somebody in scientists try to do that. They put before dying, they put the body of a person in a glass covered with glass, thinking that if you
They
try
can
to
trap the soul. They can trap the soul, prevent it from going out.
but because the soul is spiritual, it can travel through. That's why the ghost can travel.
Ghosts can travel through the walls. Yeah.
So one thing is that we have to give up our false pride or prestige that we get. The other is moha, which is illusion. And how we are going to get rid of illusion is basically reality from Vedas. Or else you will be, if you try to find on your own, because our senses are imperfect, right? You will be always illusion. And also freedom from false association. Should have the association of the right people so that you get that knowledge. Because if you go and associate with the persons who are engrossed in the material enjoyment, you will never going to get this transcendental knowledge. So that will lead to understanding the eternal. The first 3 steps will lead to understanding the eternity of yourself, which will lead to freedom from dualities. We always see happiness, distress, and then heat. These all are going to exist in this material world because this world is a relative world actually. You will have happiness, distress, everything is going to exist. And then we are done with all these things, then we will be get freedom from our material lust and bewilderment. We always get bewildered, right? What's happening in my life? Then you will have a clear understanding. Like we need to have understanding of the 5 topics that is discussed in Bhagavad Gita. Once we have that understanding, we will not get bewildered. Even if sometimes we see bad things happen to good people, right? But we don't know what was their past background and things like that, karma. So this is you need to have this understanding. So who can surrender to the Supreme? He is the one who will qualify to go go towards the supreme abode or towards this travel towards the spiritual planet.
So why is it like circuit? Once you reach that winning, winning the
Kama.
And you put it in circle because this is not a one-time process. It's a gradual process. That's why I put it in the circle.
So it's not even the steps are not like well defined. That only if you finish the red one you can go to yellow. It's a constant,
It's a constant trial.
we just build up.
It's a work in progress.
Work in progress, yeah.
It's not like
Iterative.
when you reach the day of the once you
You're
have
done.
with the materials. That will happen at the very exit stage. So you need to
Keep working on it.
keep working on it. It's a constant process.
And actually when we try at this moment we try after like tomorrow and again you have to enforce it.
Yeah.
It's not like once out is out.
Yeah, we experience, we go to Prabhu's class on Friday, on Saturday and Sunday we are in good consciousness and then it again starts until next Friday. We have to constantly make an effort to, keep ourselves straight.
It's a constant effort. It takes time. But you started. The day has started. A lot of time you sit in the plane. Plane is taking off. You see all the buildings around you. It's taking off and everything is, there is a lot of momentum. Everything is moving, you feel that. Something is happening. Spiritual life also is the same thing. You start and you see a lot of momentum. Things are happening in life. As soon as you take after a while, you see, oh, there is nothing happening, it's all stagnant. But the plane is actually moving at a speed of 500 miles an hour. Just giving an example, whatever is the speed of the plane. It's moving. There is a momentum. We are not able to realize that moment. It has already taken. So that also happens. After a while, you'll see that nothing I am not going anywhere. I am putting everything and I am not seeing it. But keep a faith that you have taken off and the plane will go in the right direction. The pilot is over here, Ram Krishna, and the director of the radars. We are following all the process and we are in the right direction. So don't see of the frustration. In many cases I've seen that people get frustrated. I don't see any changes happening in my life. But there's a tremendous amount of change from the way when you begin, the way you think now. Everything is different. So that one thing, practitioner has to keep this in mind. So when you follow the process, so there are two processes. One is ascending, one is descending. Ascending is the way scientists do it. They do experimentation and then write thesis and then go to the conclusion and write thesis about this. And going from their research work, it's going up. They are finding everything. Here it's a descending process. Everything is given. We just follow the process given by the Vedas. But descending doesn't mean we are going down. Is the way we receive knowledge. We receive knowledge from the top in
It's like this, right? You're climbing a mountain. You start from the bottom on your own versus somebody throwing a rope from up or using which you climb up. So that's how. So the first part is always difficult and not assured of success, right? When you climb on your own. Whereas a person who is already on the top, he throws a rope and you just catch hold of the rope and climb it. That's the descending process actually.
Descending process has many advantages. The biggest advantage descending process has is you don't have no manifestation. Few research we have to do in the beginning to make sure that the path we are taking is correct. That research we do. Like what should the Prabhupada is saying, is it correct or not? That much intelligence you have. Once you have convinced that no, this person is not cheating, he is giving correct information. Then just blindly follow it. Let it do that. Because every time you doubt anything, it slows you down. So we have to start accepting the process. And then sometimes statements may be doubtful because that is beyond our reach of understanding. How this is actually going to make this and that. This is the process here. And then fail forward that. And then we'll see results. Because there are many other people who have seen results. Like for example, Arjuna says, I accept you as a supreme because I am saying that plus all the acharyas, he is represent Bhagavan Ramanacharya, but he is talking about other acharyas.
Vyasa.
They are also saying the same. So what gain they will have by confusing us or these things? They won't have. So then we accept the statement of Arjuna and then we also progress.
We are associated with the three modes of material nature, but we must become detached through devotional service to the Lord. If we are not attached to devotional service to the Lord, then we cannot become detached from the material modes of material nature.
So, if we, as most of us, past or now in the process of getting attached to Krishna, the process is of getting detached from material world is that you need to have attachment somewhere, or else your detachment is never going to happen. So what Prabhupada is mentioning is that you start your devotional service with which you will develop attachment to Krishna, and the material detachment will automatically follow.
So attachment cannot be eliminated basically.
Yeah. That's
So we saw right, soul needs love. Soul needs, so without
Really?
love means there will be attachment.
Same thing, like you cannot be staying alone or doing nothing. Like you'll go
Yes.
crazy. So you have to be constantly doing something to keep you up.
Right. So since attachment cannot be eliminated, it can only be transferred. So either you, if you are not attached to Krishna, you are attached to Maya. So that attachment cannot be eliminated. So we have to channel it towards Krishna to get detached from material nature.
Another important thing is that we do not work on detachment. We work on attachment. So we have attachment. Attachment is like how in the material things. We bring that attachment to Krishna. Right? We do not work on I want to detach this. We want to attach to Krishna. Detachment is not, that's what it is.
Byproduct.
It's a byproduct. Detachment is a byproduct. Right? We do not work on focusing on developing good qualities. Good qualities is a byproduct. It's automatically going to happen. You are automatically going to be truthful. You are automatically going to be, you have to work on it, of course, on the attachment part. But you are automatically going to be clean. So the detachment part is happening on its own. Like I have something in my hand. There's something in the ground. I want to lift that second thing. So my focus is not on giving up this. My focus is on grabbing this. This is automatically given up. When I grab this one, this is gone. So similarly, when we more attached to Krishna, the detachment is a subsequent
Byproduct.
Designations and attachments are due to our lust and desire, our wanting to lord it over the material nature. As long as we do not give up this propensity of lording it over material nature, there is no possibility of returning to the kingdom of Supreme, the Sanatan Dham.
So here again Prabhupada is emphasizing on the going back to the basics of Sanatana Dharma, that if we still want to enjoy the material world, there is no possibility of returning back to the spiritual world. Why? Why we discuss?
Material world is temporary.
Uh-huh.
Sanatana Dharma, the principle of Sanatana Dharma is focusing service towards Lord Krishna. So that is eternal. Everything else is temporary.
Mm-hmm.
So material world is temporary. But the moment you are sticking to temporary world, that will never get
So, Veeraprabhu, what is when we discuss the topic on jivas,
karma.
like we define Bhagavan as Ishvara, controller. Then what we discuss jiva as? Huh? Controlled and we are basically enjoy. We have to give us that propensity, and in Sanatana Dharma, our dharma is to serve, okay, not to enjoy. And also we have to be controlled and enjoyed, and that's where Prabhupada uses one term called we have to cooperate rather than trying to enjoy. So if you have the propensity to enjoy this material world, is never going to you are never going to have detachment from this material world. You are still attached to it. You are never going to have attachment to Krishna. There is no possibility of going back to the spiritual world.
The Bhagavad Gita, the entire Bhagavad Gita says how to detach from this material world to attain constant, steady happiness, not sad and that good, bad, misery, right? To just avoid everything, just have constant peacefulness.
Again, different paths are given, and we'll see like how Bhakti Yoga is the
Elevate.
easiest and the
Fastest.
most foolproof way. So there is Dhyana Yoga given, there is Karma Yoga given. So different paths are given, but in the end, Krishna says, just forget about everything I said, just surrender to me. I will protect you, I will take care of all your sinful reactions, and do not fear. So that's the crux of Bhagavad Gita, ultimate verse.
It tells you various paths. Various path means attaching to Krishna.
Yeah.
That's the various path. The methods are given. There are other topics, many topics being described, but the central topic is one. Krishna is revealing about himself. The whole Gita is focused on as it is. The word as it is means Krishna's intention is to talk about himself in the easy. Unless he reveals it, how will we know? How will we develop it? So, of course, all those things are there, but the main crux of the Gita is Krishna is talking about himself. And the last line, basically last two or three lines say that you are only going to, I have told you many things, but the last final instruction is the most important. That you surrender. And that's the easiest process. It's called an elevator method. You went to the elevator, sit in the elevator, it will take you to the 100 over. Otherwise, the other process, there is a lot of work. In the sense, there is a lot of struggle. And then it's like ascending process, most of it. This is a descending process. Sarvadharman Pratyam, Mahamekam, we just take Sharanam. Now, a lot of times we are confused with the word Sharanam because we think surrender means we become
Slaves.
slave, exactly. We become slave. But if you see the picture, the top picture of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is looking like a slave. Is it not? So it is not, surrender is not like that. Surrender is actually reciprocation. Surrender in reciprocation. Krishna reciprocates. Surrender of love. Mother surrenders to the child. She is awake whole night. The mother's love is the highest love in material for the child. There is no, that is
Purest form.
the purest form. That is the closest to the love version. Mother doesn't want anything from the child, but she can be awake whole night. So that is out of love. Similarly, Krishna out of love, he takes the lowest position of a child.
So I was watching the documentary recently about being so people who are living with very few hours, they actually still living a peaceful life.
Yes.
So I think that is very, this is what even Gita says. Material home, it is not going to be happiness.
Because these things are like this, sitting, all this online, computer, these are all dead. These are matter, these are dead. Whereas we are spirit which is alive. We are conscious. So a conscious cannot enjoy something which is dead.
Yeah, that's how false illusion. We think that it is going to give us happiness, but it won't.
It won't.
Something is clashing.
If you get one more, if you don't get more, we are sad.
That's why we want more. where your stomach is satisfied, you eat food. You don't want, even if somebody gives you, you don't want. But why you are wanting the other one? Let's say I get iPhone 6 and I have iPhone 7. Because the iPhone 6 is not
Not
satisfying.
satisfying.
This is what iPhone 7. I'm thinking that iPhone 7 will satisfy. Go for 8. That is also not going to satisfy. So it's constant look for happiness all over the place. But if the stomach is full, then you don't want any no more rasgullas. I like rasgullas a lot, but no more rasgullas. Because I am satisfied. So similar, only satisfaction we have. I think that is covered or it's fully satisfied, fully satisfied, and it's coming. It's already done, right?
सनातन धर्म में
सनातन धर्म में
नहीं, ये नहीं आएगा बेटा।
जीवन में we covered little aspect of it in the 5 topics in the Jiva के थोड़ा इसमें cover किए थे.
So the full soul will be fully satisfied only when it re-establishes the relation with Krishna. And Krishna gave equal attention to everything. It's not that Krishna will give attention, more attention to him, no, he is giving equal attention to him. So we get our share. We don't think that he can expand. The beauty of Krishna is he can expand himself. And whatever rasa we have, that's a unique rasa that nobody else has that rasa. So, right now, no soul. No soul. So, whatever rasa we have with Krishna, no other soul will have that rasa. So, that's why Krishna attention on us will be full for that particular rasa. And in that, we will be fully satisfied.
That eternal kingdom, which is never destroyed, can be approached by one who is not bewildered by the attractions of false material enjoyments, who is situated in the service of Supreme Lord. One so situated can easily approach that supreme abode.
So again here Prabhupada is summing up that if we are not bewildered by this falsely material enjoyments, then we can attain the supreme abode. So what we saw in the flow is that he started with the spiritual world, then he came to the glimpse of the material world, the interplanetary system travel. Now he's talking about how to attain. During the description of the material world, Prabhupada is saying that don't even think of going to any of the higher planetary system. Aim high, going back to the spiritual world, that is to Goloka Vrindavan. Now in this paragraph he gave what is that qualification we all need to build to go back to that spiritual world actually.
Elsewhere in the Gita, 8:21, it is stated, Avyaptokshra iti yuktas tam ahu paramam gatim yam prapya na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. Avyakta means unmanifested. Not even all of the material world is manifested before us. Our senses are so imperfect that we cannot even see all the stars within this material universe. In the Vedic literature, we can retrieve much information about all the planets, and we can believe it or not believe it. All of the important planets are described in the Vedic literatures, especially Srimad Bhagavatam, and the spiritual world, which is beyond this material sky, is described as avyakta or unmanifested. One should desire and hanker after that supreme kingdom, for when one attains that kingdom, he doesn't have to return to this material world.
Again, Prabhupada is emphasizing on the point that there are so many stars and other planets within this material world, right? We see stars during the night, such a small glowing element, right? But it is much, much bigger than what we can imagine. Sun is how many times bigger than the earth, but it looks like a small globe of fire, right? Also here, Prabhupada is saying more than that. He is saying that the spiritual world is what is unmanifest to us. We are, first of all, our senses are limited. That's how he starts. Senses are imperfect. We cannot see what is there in this material world, but there is much beyond this which is there in the spiritual planet or spiritual world. We discussed right today. The spiritual world is 3/4 of the whole, and we are just 1/4 actually. And within that 1/4, I cannot see what is behind this wall. So how I can imagine what is the spiritual world all about. Actually.
It's huge.
Yeah,
We are,
imagination, or your sense can even perceive that actually. And that's where reading the scriptures and getting the Prabhu talked about the descending process, right, of receiving the knowledge. That's the only way we can receive it actually.
Even comparing the stars and material world, right? Like size of sun, galaxies,
yeah,
and
there's a
like
video.
it's like it's, yeah, here like minuscule, like matter. So another question.
Mm-hmm.
Why we have why we why we have to first of all why we born in because we did something wrong in the past life. That's why we are here. Like we will be here forever. Until we play like Krishna and when we go to bhakti or spiritual state, we'll be in the same world ever forever.
See,
Yeah, the second part is true. Like, unless we surrender to Krishna, we
yeah,
cannot leave this
Am I
material.
going to born again in future or once I
yeah.
That's a choice. That's the choice we can make as a human birth,
We-
right? In the
am
human
going
life,
to come as big animal or human?
right? Yeah, yeah.
Or
It
you
means
see on the earth until you just surrender yourself to
yes.
Krishna.
Or maybe not, it could be lower parameters.
Yeah, yeah. Any species on this planet or on any other planet, higher planets, lower planets, it all depends on
And
your karma and the desire that you have. And the reason why we first came into this material world, so originally we were all with Krishna. We are a part and parcel of Krishna. The reason why we came here is because we had some rebellious attitude towards Krishna. Like we had some problem accepting his supreme position in his abode. Like Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. So if we get a thought, why him? Why not me? That's a little kind of envy that gets, because every jiva has a free will. So he can desire, to take Krishna's position. But that is not possible because our position is not to be the supreme enjoyer, basically. And for correction, then you have the desire to enjoy. It is not possible in Golaka because he is the supreme enjoyer. There, everybody else cooperates. And if you don't desire to cooperate, then Krishna is very kind. He says, okay, it's not possible here, but for fulfillment of your desires, let me create. You go to this place where you can become the controller. You can become the enjoyer of your own little world.
Try to.
Try to.
animals can be attaining spiritual state, only humans.
Humans have the best chance, consciously they can do, but again there are exceptions. We have cases where Gajendra is one. Again, he was a special soul, he was a bhakta in his previous life. But then, causeless mercy of Lord, he can take anyone he desires, out of this, cycle.
So out of our free will, we came here actually. We wanted to enjoy separately from
You
Krishna.
enjoy separately.
Soul basically, soul has his journey. To understand that, right? Soul has his journey. So you being a soul, I being a soul, we all have our own journeys. So currently we are in the journey, in the point where we are in the human body. Previously we don't know what body is. We have no way to understand it.
We are being going to the journey. Who knows how many billions
Yeah.
of years.
Right. We could be like previously in God's body, or it could be in plant's body. We don't know, but we were in some body. So somehow or other, because of our prior pious credits, we have been introduced to this information. Not everybody is as fortunate as us. Think about it. Even if they receive, they are accepted. So someone who accepts this knowledge, according to Veda, is considered to be the most fortunate. Brahmande Dravite Punam
Bhagyavan Ji,
Brahmand means
Universe.
the whole universe,
Dravite, Dravite is moving around,
wandering.
wandering around. Puno Bhagyavan, one very rare soul, mercy of the Guru and Krishna, he gets the seed of bhakti. So what we're trying to do is, what he is trying to get the seed of bhakti. So there are how many people in Seattle?
Three, four.
Maybe a couple of million. And you are at least how many people are trying to understand this message? Handful of people, right? Compared to 300 million. Or you will 6-7 million. Out of that, how many people are trying to accept this knowledge? Couple of million in lakhs. So, and this is just human beings. And in even one human body, there are so many living entities. There's trees, there's insects, there's ants. If you just dig a hole, there will be hundreds of living entities.
Here in this room, there are innumerable living entities are there. Bacteria.
So if you compare everything, all the living entities, this 100 million is like extremely like nothing. These way people are trying to understand this process.
So being born as human is a great thing that we can attain.
Yeah, it's a huge. Actually, probably you put one in my picture, right?
Yeah.
In Buddhist scripture, it is given like
The birth of the human. Oh yeah, I'll get that. Yeah.
comparison of getting a human birth is Buddhist scripture, like practical example. So let me continue with this. So what will you do next is what depends on you. Part of it, knowingly or unknowingly. But because you are here in Krishna consciousness, you are trying to do something. Krishna gives a guarantee. Like if you see Jagannath, Lord Jagannath, it's a guarantee that you will get heaven. That's a guarantee you have. Like just seeing Lord Jagannath. Or just uttering the word Krishna, you are just saying, right?
Right.
It's given in the scriptures that just uttering the word one time Krishna,
Unintentionally also.
unintentionally also, you can counteract so many sins
More than
which
can
you
refund.
don't have capacity to perform. Like much sins are encountered. I mean, cancer.
And they can get human.
Huh?
They are saying they can get human life.
Human life is just by seeing Jagannath. Just like Jagannath comes out. Rath Yatra is nothing but Jagannath coming out and giving his darshan. He is so merciful. So that people see his Jagannath.
Is Krishna himself.
Krishna himself. So, the point I'm trying to say is that the soul is going to that journey. So, it's soul decision whether he wants to accept this and move forward in this direction or want to reject it. It's completely a free will of the soul. The soul has to make choice. Krishna spoke in Bhagavad Gita. After that, after saying Sarvadharma Tarita, we saw that person. After that, Krishna told him in Bhagavad Gita, I said, you know, I have told you many things. Did you understand it? Or do you want me to repeat?
प्रभु जी कहाँ पे वो टर्टल वाला?
मैंने शायद मैंने टाइम मैनेजमेंट रिटर्न किया था शायद उसी में होगा.
You showed us in like
Google.
Silicon Valley class.
Huh? Yeah, I know. I feel well. I'm just trying to.
So, the soul has to make a decision or choice that whether it wants to continue in the cycle. But, we being here and done some devotional service, like Krishna's statement is that we are supposed to get continue in this journey. So, all of you coming here means you have done something. All of us, we have taken into this process. Means we have done something in the past. Another opportunity is given to us. You know, ask in chapter 6, what happens when somebody starts and is not able to finish? So Krishna answers that by saying that it is a short term journey. Somebody is taken for short term. Then he goes to the heavenly planets. Then he enjoys there and comes back and starts the process again. Now, why does he go to the heavenly planet? Think about this. Why Krishna is saying this?
So even if I don't have a love for Krishna, and even if you go to Loka, you may have again a desire to come back, right?
Then Krishna is saying that when Krishna reminds us the suffering we went, and that's why we don't desire to go. want to go? No, I want to be like the child. Say child. Child is saying, I want to drive a car.
Yeah.
His son is saying, I want to drive a car. His dad is saying, oh, but I cannot drive a car. He said, no, I want to drive. Then he sleeps on the ground and starts crying. He said, okay, okay, let's go. Then he takes
Want to free will mind.
Yeah, then he gives him a toy car, right?
Yeah.
A motorized car. The child will be satisfied. But actually, it's not the real car. The same thing, when we want to enjoy, we want to be the supreme enjoyer there, that's not possible. So, he gives us a illusion of the world where we can be supreme enjoyers, like where we can think of ourselves as a supreme enjoyer. We made that choice actually. And from there, either we can realize immediately and go back, or we can get more implicated there. And that's how we can fall down further and further and further. So it is said that when we first leave the spiritual world, the first birth we are given is that of a Brahma. So he is the most elevated person, most enlightened person in any universe, right? So from there, you do your job as Brahma. If you realize, you can go back immediately, you have the best chance. But if you are not, then keep falling down, 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 down. And it's not that Krishna has abandoned us, right? He accompanies us as Paramatma in our heart. He is guiding us at every moment. The only thing is we have to listen to him.
every facility if you see is given by him. Really, if you see, there is a lot of air. Do you produce air? Do you produce water? Do you produce grain? Anything you need is given. Have you done anything to create the sun? Have you done anything to create this atmosphere? All the ingredients of this house, food, everything is given. You just transform things here and there, and you feel that this is mine.
Instead of being in a prison, we have so much facilities.
All these facilities are there, and we say that this is mine. I did it.
Even we also like we ask us to create. I mean, we didn't create us, right? It's not in our hand. Someone must have created us. It must be God.
Yeah,
And we create something and say we really created it. It's
not us. Yeah, exactly. We didn't choose the home where we need to take birth. We didn't choose anything.
Body.
Not the body, which family you want to get married or whatever. Sometimes we cannot control. We don't have control. Absolutely, we have zero control. I mean, somebody who is smart person will realize this. It takes a lot of smartness to realize that. It takes time. The things are happening on its own. We don't have absolutely zero control of anything. After going out, we don't know our car will start on. It's a faith we have. The car is going to start. So, similarly, it takes some life to understand. But these are facts.
Only this slide.
Yes, so this is there this is one of the Buddhist scriptures.
Bala Pandita Sutta.
And this is in that scripture it is given that getting a human birth is extremely rare. How rare? So the comparison is given. This is just to give an example. So there is a wooden thing floating in the water, right? In the ocean.
Yeah.
And there is a turtle in the ocean. So what is the probability that the turtle will swim and generally turtle comes up every 1 or 2 hours to take a breath. So what is the probability of that turtle? There is a whole ocean, if you say, Indian Ocean or Pacific Ocean. It's huge, Atlantic Ocean. So what is the probability of turtle coming out and the hole is there in the knob of wood, which is on the leftmost of the shoulder?
The turtle is blind.
Turtle is blind.
Turtle is there, yeah. What is the probability that turtle is blind?
Turtle is blind. A blind turtle coming up for air in such a huge ocean, and
The
then
law-
the knob of wood is there,
Having
it says,
a-
right? It's tossed by waves left and right, by currents and winds. You know,
Yeah.
the likelihood of a blind turtle rising from the depths of the ocean to the surface once in 100 years, putting its head through the hole in the yolk, is considered greater than that of a being in the animal realm, hungry ghost realm, or whatever, as a rebirth as a human being.
So I just recently saw, even this is how the birth happens. Even when the union happens, there are so many living entities come, right? And billions, right? So they just produce a video for this. You can pause this. First challenge in the life itself, like only one jiva will be able to unite, and then they will be able to form the body actually. When the union happens, so many sperms are released. Just one will be able to unite, and they will form the body. Actually, the first challenge is that so many are trying to enter the mother's womb actually. And here is the first. So now it's the next phase of the baby development. It shows that why the birth is the misery. Because so limited space you have to grow it.
Yeah, there is one video, I think it's on YouTube. They have converted this in terms of environment.
In terms of
Environment with people.
uh-huh.
They show that the sperms inside sperms has each sperm is one person, and then how they are racing. And then you see that it's so challenging. Some spots there are like mountains, like that high. That's a reduction. Huh? Yeah, you have to reach that. You have to climb the mountains. There are places like that. If you compare person to that sperm, even the small distance to cover, it's like for an ant, our hand is like a big jungle, right? Our hair is like it's when the let's say ant is traveling through this. It's like traveling to a bush of this, right?
100 miles. Going 100 miles continuously.
Yeah, exactly. From here to here distance it's 100 miles for that. Just kidding. The smaller than here. Yes. So that comparison is really awesome now. Even some of them, and then there is a lot of other acids and everything like that which burns them, which kills them. So why is that all this system is there? Because they want the fittest, survival of the fittest. So the fittest sperm will reach to them. Only 4 or 5 reaches there. Out of all that, only one is accepted. Sometimes 2. Multiple. Very rare. So when you see that, actually, it's really, in animal kingdom also, there is so much struggle actually. I was saying one time this life of these ants. You should watch these videos and then you feeding everyone. Krishna says, right? Nitya Nityanam
Chaitanya, Chaitanya.
You will really see how Krishna is feeding even a hand. Krishna is saying in one verse, I am feeding each and every day happy. Their portion of food is given by me. With our portion of food, we think that we are running. But actually, Krishna is giving, he is providing us whatever is the facility. For us, all this is so easy compared to the living, other living. It's extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. Other living is life in another species. You see how a cat for getting home, so they look very cute. As soon as they are outside, it's like
Yeah, even non-human like animals, right? Even the mother leaves immediately. It's not like humans where you have to for some time.
Okay, so we'll end here.
This video is beyond science. Very beyond science.
Yeah. So make use of best use of this human body we have got actually. And get out of this.
I have these questions like right from, I don't know, like from past childhood, right? No one could answer me.
We'll end here.